On average, across 35 African countries, only 2/3 of citizens live in communities with piped water and an electric grid. And this is according to an organization called Afrobarometer. CNBC Africa now unpacks their latest survey on the state of infrastructure across the continent. Over the last few years, Africa has seen an upsurge of funding towards infrastructure. But despite the efforts, lack of access to basic services remains a worrying trend.
Availability of, for example, electricity and piped water is becoming is universal. In few countries, those are now the country differences. Countries like Mauritius and Egypt, they have already achieved universal access. So I don't know whether maybe if we were to go to those two countries, they will be talking about maintaining it that way or improving it, or their challenges are very different. When you come to Kenya, we are talking about coverage, we are talking about rural electrification, and this is being done by a lot of Eastern African countries, and you will see how East African countries are performing. But Mauritius and Egypt, those are not big deals. They can now shift their policy focus to other areas of importance.
According to the World Bank, only 1 in 3 Africans can access basic infrastructure, key among them electricity, water, sewerage systems, and health services. Some analysts have blamed this on corruption.
It's not just that the infrastructure is not constructed at the right pace. I think infrastructure deficit is there and everybody accepted. It's the choices of what infrastructure that we've taken, and some of it, if you add to the corruption and the inefficiencies in it, mean that all that spending is not going to be cost effective, but that may still be costly to the economy in other ways.
According to the report by Afrobarometer that covered 35 African nations, less than 30% of citizens have access to sewerage systems, an indication that sewerage structures have been forgotten in the development agenda.
Basically means probably policy has not paid particular attention to this particular service. And we do know that a number of African countries concentrate a lot on health, on education. And when it comes to infrastructure, again, it has been sometimes very isolated. A lot of African states and even the NEPAD, the AU, the regional entities, they are concentrating on roads. So roads has been really the in thing. When I'm still to see documents focusing on sewage system.
The survey also points towards the need to bridge huge development disparities between rural and urban areas.
The rural areas are particularly underserved, as you've seen. Less than half of rural residents have access to electricity, piped water, sewerage, tarred and paved roads. So for even some of us who are in this area in terms of research, who want to talk about rural-urban connections and talk of use continuum theories and the rest, we are saying that besides all those, in practice, these two areas are still very distinct, and in terms of being served with infrastructure and services, they have differences, and this needs to be bridged.
To its credit, Kenya's government, and not just this administration, the administration that preceded it as well, has focused quite a bit on infrastructure. A good thing, and I think that's required, one, for crowding investment and to ensure efficiencies that even allows for export to take place in there. My concern is not only that we are crowding in, that infrastructure is not being constructed at the right pace. I actually think we are overpaying for infrastructure, and some of the choices we've made are not the right ones. SGR will forever remain contentious. I think it's gone very, very quickly in terms of pace, to be honest. It's gone very, very quickly, but I think we're overstating and we're overpaying, and therefore overstating what it will deliver to the national economy. It's a very expensive project, it will remain so.
Mauritius and Egypt have been highly ranked in the provision of basic infrastructure to its citizens. However, countries from West and Central Africa are performing poorly, with East Africa ranking last.
East Africa ranks last in availability of electricity, piped water, sewerage, and cell phone services. So we are doing bad. We are laggers. We are moving, yes, as we had said, in terms of looking at the generality, but when you come to regions, the African region, East African region, is a region of concern, and we, together with our leaders, must put more efforts into improving these particular services.
We need to not just defend ourselves that we are not sure demand, therefore we should not supply service. We need to look at cost-benefit analysis and see what can be put within the context of economic variable. But our argument is that if we have infrastructure in an EA, most likely, irrespective of what you look at, it will have or it will create its own demand.